Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark for the hottest team in the NHL, sitting at like 23rd in the league, but they have won 8 of their last 10. Something like, was it 6 of their last 7? Something dumb. But it is our March 20th show, and as always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing tonight, Clay?
Parker, I'm doing great. Thank you. Took the day off work. Took a couple days this week. As you know, my wife's a vice principal, so she's off. Kayla's off. So spent some money at Tuason Mills and spent a lot of my good health at this sukiyaki place, a hot pot place in Richmond. And I ate so much that I actually had got Gail to drop me off about 3 kilometers from my house, and I walked it off on the way home.
That's some impressive willpower, I will
Thank you.
say.
Nice night.
Yeah,
How are you?
No, that is excellent. I am
Thank
good. We had our first team softball game tonight. A bunch of hockey players playing in the beginner league of softball. We got killed a little bit, but it was fun. It was a good time. Nice to get out on a pretty chilly evening. But no, honestly, for me, I'm all in for golf season right now. We're getting close.
Yes.
And that's what I'm looking forward to.
And we will do that much anticipated. I wouldn't say showdown because it's not gonna be showdown. Tutorial. I'll bring you bowling. You bring me golfing. We'll film it, and it'll be awesome.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah. No, I'll bowl like a 98. And
Yeah.
Wait. You have to break in golf what I score in bowling.
Oh, I'm not gonna. Actually, no. So that means I want you to do well,
right? Yeah. So you have to teach me good.
Oh yeah, no, I need about 100. I need about 140 strokes. So you got to bowl 140.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll plan that out.
Excellent. Well, tonight, it is a Monday night, so it's good to be here in our normal time slot. And we do have a couple Canucks games to talk about. And the Canucks have won 8 of their last 10 hockey games. They had won 5 in a row, so they've won 6 of their last 7 after another win last night. Weakest strength of schedule in the league from basically then on out. But this team's looking pretty okay, even against some not great opponents.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and we can start to go through a few of the games. I want to while I do this. Parker, they mentioned that your video resolution went a bit funky for, so I don't know if you can see that on your side.
As long as I sound okay, that's all I'm worried about.
I know that's the most important thing for sure. Also sounding good and hopefully looking good. Happy birthday to Coach Rob. I know that he mentioned it yesterday. I know that he had a great day today, and he's a very supportive, loyal supporter of the channel. So we want to wish Rob a happy birthday for sure from both Parker and me. So thanks for your support, Rob, and hope you had a great day. Okay.
Excellent. Happy birthday.
Yes. Where do you want to? I guess we both were pretty good at predictions. I said, no. Did you? I don't know what I said. No, I said 2-0-1. I said 5 points, which was a little bit optimistic.
Yeah, I said 3-0 because they were going to win 21 straight. They can get what, like 93 points now? So it's getting a little tough to make the playoffs.
It is. Now, did you get a chance to watch these 3 games this week? I know last week you had a crazy busy week.
I did. I watched most of the Stars game.
Yep.
And I watched a bit of the Kings game, I think.
Oh no, those were. Oh yes, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I feel like I definitely watched 2 games.
Oh,
the
we
majority
had our
of 2
show.
games. Oh, sorry. No, I looked at the schedule wrong. I definitely saw. I think I saw the Coyotes and Kings games. I don't think I watched the Ducks game.
We must have had our show on Tuesday night last week too, because we were predicting only 3 games. It must have been.
Yes, it was on Tuesday night last week.
Okay.
And I predicted 3-0. Which
you did. So we're both pretty close. Yeah, they lost. I guess they beat a team that they shouldn't have in LA, and they lost a team they shouldn't have in Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, let's not oversell the Kings, right? I mean, they do have a plus 12 goal differential this year.
Right.
But yeah, the Coyotes are bad, and they lost to the Coyotes, which was good for the tank to sort of start off the week.
Yeah.
And then, they go out and they beat the Kings. And then the game against the Ducks was a real showcase in how the Vancouver Canucks are not the worst team in hockey. Like, like they proved that there was another level well below them, and that the fact that the Canucks were like fourth or fifth at the bottom of the standings at one point was kind of a fluke because and really a lack of having a good goalie because my goodness, the Ducks were just completely outclassed.
There was one time in the third period, Parker, where Anaheim, they literally gave the puck away 4 times to the Canucks. Now, they didn't get any shots in those, but they probably had the puck in the Anaheim zone for about a minute 15, even a minute and a half, and they could not move the puck. And it was very reminiscent of the Canucks struggles, especially, I'll say it, under Boudreau in the first 2 months of this season. It was horrible. And without John Gibson, we got 40 shots. Can you imagine? That could have easily, it's basically like the Canucks when it was Demko doing that for us. It could have been 5, 6, 7 goals. John Gibson was the only reason why it wasn't.
I feel so bad for John Gibson. I mean, he has been like genuinely one of the best goalies of the last, maybe not the last couple of years, but I mean, you talk about the 5 years before that.
Yeah.
And the team has just been so bad in front of him that he'll go out, he'll face 40 shots in a night and, or he'll go out, he'll face 28 shots, but like 15 of them are high danger and he'll allow 3 goals. So his save percentage looks bad, but he was just getting, grade A's against him all night. And he's been, a fantastic piece for Anaheim and just has gotten no support whatsoever.
You think, I think it's, I was going to ask a silly question. If he was on a much better team, his numbers would be way better. He's always in the, in the talk. Before it was Jonathan Quick and him. Now it's basically Connor Hellebuck, still him. And sometimes Demko gets thrown in there. Although Demko I saw was ranked as the 4th in U.S. goalie, but I'm trying to think of who might be ahead of him now. There's Hellebuck. There's Gibson.
Yeah, Blackwood was in the conversation for a bit, and then he fell off.
Okay, maybe that's
he had a
who
couple
it
of
was.
good years, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at John Gibson's career, right? He's only 29 years old, which is he'll be 30 this offseason.
Yep.
But his first 5 seasons, 914, 920, 924, 926, 917, right?
Wow.
Like absolutely unreal. And the last 5 have been pretty rough, but I mean, one year he started 35 games and had 9 wins. To really give you a hint of how bad it has been. But he's never been below 900, right? Even Thatcher Demko this year is below 500.
Yeah.
So, he's been very, very consistent, even though the team in front of him has been abysmal, as we saw the other night.
It was brutal. And then it was kind of a role reversal from the Canucks against the Kings on Saturday. The Canucks did to the Ducks what the Kings did to them the night before from a shot percentage and just dominated. But the Canucks, only 3 players got points, but all 3 of them got 2 points each. And it was the 3 that we'd expect in Pettersson, Miller, and Hughes, who is just quietly, man. And I know we're going to talk about this, just setting records left, right, and center, doing stuff that no Canucks defenseman has ever done.
Yeah, 60 assists, right? I mean, you think of 5 goals in 65 games doesn't sound great until you pair it, with 60 assists for a total of 65 points. There's all these like, all the stats accounts tweeting out. I know Stats Center, which is the TSN one, tweeted out, in their first 270 games. I think he's like the 4th in defenseman points all time in the first 270 games or something along those lines. Which is crazy, the fact that Quinn Hughes has played 270 games already. But he's over 200 assists in those 270 games on a team that hasn't been good at any real point of that, right?
Yes.
It's unreal.
Yes.
He is so good. That's one of those drafts that I look back on and remember so fondly of like exactly where I was and my exact reaction of when the Arizona Coyotes took Barrett Hayton, right? And I was like, oh, we get Zadina or Hughes. And like the excitement there, and then the Red Wings go Zadina. I'm like, no, we didn't get Zadina. Hindsight, fantastic. And Quinn Hughes is like just such a phenomenal player. And it's honestly surprising when you see Quinn Hughes, who has 60 assists this year. You have Elias Pettersson, who is setting a career high in his points. You have Andrei Kuzmenko setting scoring over 30 goals. You have JT Miller at a point per game, and this team is still not a playoff team because they've allowed so many goals. I saw a stat that if the Canucks had Thatcher Demko level of goaltending all year, as in a 910 instead of a team average of like 890 for the year, that's like 65 less goals.
Wow.
Like, where is this team right now with 65 less goals? Keep in mind, they currently have a minus 25 goal differential. So they'd be plus 40 on goal differential, which would be good for a tie for second with Edmonton and Colorado in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
And for the league, it would put them at, seventh best.
Wow.
And a playoff team. Like, genuinely, the Canucks would be a playoff team. And you look at it and you say, well, that just means their goaltending's been bad, but that hasn't been the case. It's the defense.
Yes. No, that's crazy because our scoring has been so good. So if I throw these two stats at you, Parker, both Quinn Hughes related, you tell me which one is the most impressive. There is the one that you said, 2 consecutive 60 assist campaigns by a defenseman, last done 30 years ago by both Ray Bourque and Paul Coffey. Okay, that's pretty cool. But then he also, I know he's battling with Cale Makar, but he's now the 3rd in all-time NHL defenseman in history assists per game. Bobby Orr, no one's going to catch him. He basically had 1 assist per game, which is crazy. And then Paul Coffey was 2nd. And now it's basically Hughes and Makar battling each other at 0.756, 0.760. So of those 2 stats, consecutive 60 assists seasons or 3rd all-time in assists per game, which one is more impressive to you?
I mean, they're kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
But because I think his average right now is like around 60 assists per season.
Right.
Which is fantastic, right? If this Canucks team was a contender, right?
Yep.
Let's say they had 40 wins this season.
Yep.
Like, Quinn Hughes is getting genuine Norris conversation. Because if you look back at the Hughes Makar rookie years and how that Calder race was kind of interesting, but like Cale Makar was slightly better. Then you have the few years after that where Cale Makar really stepped forward, and it was, Cale Makar was the better defenseman, and Cale Makar was one of the best defensemen in the league.
Yeah.
And especially because Quinn Hughes had a couple of like not great years, especially on the defensive end. Quinn Hughes has pulled back and is like genuinely back to that level of being very close to the player Cale Makar is. Makar is more dynamic offensively and is going to score more goals no matter what.
Yeah.
But Quinn Hughes is such a creator of offense and such a good playmaker that, he's up there. Like, he will be in Norris conversation for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
Because if the team, let's say, gets better, let's say he's playing with Filip Hronek instead of Luke Shen, right? Suddenly we're talking about a player who can create more offense from the point. Maybe we're talking about 70 assist seasons, 80 assist seasons, right? Then we're really talking about a player in Quinn Hughes who maybe puts up 90 points in a year with only 7 goals, right? That's so realistic for him. But, if the Canucks are a team that is, putting up 105 points instead of a team that's putting up 80 points, then you have a player who's actually going to be in Norris contention.
Yes. Well said. And, it's funny, and I already saw someone mention it here. There's always going to be the Hughes Makar debate. We know Makar got picked 4th in 2017, 1 pick ahead of Elias Pettersson. We know Quinn Hughes was picked 7th in 2018, 1 pick after Philip Zadina, as you mentioned. So Makar, technically, by age, by pedigree, and he already has a Norris Trophy in his bag and a Conn Smythe. So obviously, I think if we had Makar and Colorado had Hughes, I would say Makar by far and away is the better player. But it's funny, even though we have Hughes and we don't have Makar, I'm not convinced. Oh, no, I'm talking myself out of it. Makar is a right shot D-man. So for me, that's a game changer. But Hughes is a pretty darn good. I hate to even use this term. You know what I'm going to say? Consolation prize. Like between Hughes, Makar, and Fox, and Heiskanen, there's so many. Dahlin, those 5 guys really are the such good defensemen, young defensemen.
Yeah, I feel like we're talking about a top 3 versus a top 6 D-man, right?
Yeah.
Like in the NHL. And that's such a minor thing, right? You bring contract into it, suddenly Quinn Hughes is a bargain, right?
Great point.
I mean, and the thing is, Cale Makar makes $9 million, and that is a few $1 million too few. because he's that good. But you know, Quinn Hughes talked about it or especially at the end of last year, beginning of this year, that he wants to take a step forward, especially in his own end.
Yep.
And we've seen that, right? And the thing is, it's actually translated offensively too, because last year he had 60 assists. This year he has 60 assists. He's played 11 fewer games, right? So we're talking about a player who, realistically, he's a point a game, right? 65 and 65 is where Quinn Hughes is at. So we're talking about an 82-point defenseman right now. Yep. That is unbelievable. The problem is the fact that it's kind of wasted. But, you know, we're seeing this, especially in the last few games, somewhat resurgence of Thatcher Demko, who has, you know, won 4 of his last 5, been really, really good lately, which is good to see him being healthy. And, you know, he's already 27, but we're talking about a few more good years left and maybe a chance where if he's back to 9-10 level instead of 8-9-8 level, if they can pick up a backup going into next year who's going to put up a 903 or something along those lines, where, you know, you have a team that can score a lot of goals. And if you're putting up a team average of, let's say, you know, 907, 908, suddenly instead of 910, there's no real reason to think that this team can't squeak in or at least be interesting. But it's so hard to think that after, you know, the way this past year has gone.
You and I were joking. That's the title of my show later tonight. After this one is, you know, do the Canucks have a chance for next year, or can they contend for next year? Because of everything you just talked about, is not only the superstars playing well, their average being pretty good, and they're missing. Hronek hasn't played yet. Mikheyev is out for the rest of the season, and so there's a lot to talk about. But that's for future shows. The other thing I was going to say is JT Miller quietly. I'm not saying because Bo got traded, but he's quietly been one of the best players under Rick Tocchet. He's been proving it with multi-point games. That howitzer of a shot last night, an angry slap shot, as some people have called it, and playing very well. And him and Colin Delia on the same page, not fighting in the past 2 months, which has been nice to see.
Yeah. I remember at the start of the year, we talked about, you know, Miller had 99 points last year, where he's going to end up this year. And my guess was around 80, you know, like he'll regress a bit and that's exactly what he's on pace for. I think he's on pace for like 78, 79. But he has been a lot better, right? We look back at, you know, after that contract was signed, especially earlier this year, where we saw him being bad in the center role, right? As a 2C. It wasn't good. He got put on the wing and was actually a genuinely good player. And now, actually playing center, he has actually been good, which is a huge step forward. And we can debate all day long about the contract and should he be traded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I think that contract is probably a net negative in the long term, as we've discussed, because it goes to 2030.
Right.
But this somewhat of a turnaround has been an absolute boon for the Canucks, because if he was the level that he was at the beginning of this season at center for the next 8 years going forward, that would be a genuine problem. But as of right now, if he can keep up this play for the next few years, it at least will not be a hindrance, and he can be a genuine number 1 center for this team if he plays the way he has been playing. But again, we have lots of evidence to believe that might not be the case. So we need him to, you know, keep up the current level of play.
And look at that, 20 minutes in or 18 minutes in, and we've only mentioned his name, but we haven't mentioned his brilliance. Elias Pettersson, 88 points in 67 games. So the Canucks have played 69 games. You know what's interesting, Parker? No Canuck has played every single game this season. You have Miller and Kuzmenko played 68, but Kuz got, I don't know if she got a healthy scratch once. I know Miller missed 1 game. So anyways, there's 13 games left, and Pettersson's sitting on 88. I think as long as he goes a point per game, that's 101 points. Where does this guy end up? He's got 33 and 55. Do you think he can get to 40? Do you think he gets 7 goals in the next 13 games to hit 40?
Oh, absolutely. And I bet he's got that mark too, right? He seems like the kind of player where he'd be looking at that like, oh yeah, I'm going to get there. Yeah. He has been so unreal, especially it looks like on the power play, he's learned that he just needs to take 1 step forward into the faceoff circle and he's unstoppable. He genuinely has one of the best 5 shots in hockey right now.
Yeah.
It's like his wrist shot is so unreal to the point where every time he scores, it looks like he hit the post. Like
Yes.
it's that good because it pops right back out, and you're like, "What was that in?" And the spotlight comes in, and it's like, "All right, I guess he scored," because he genuinely can't miss. And I remember we were looking at this, especially with such a bad start to last year, and he still ended up having 68 points. We're like, oh well, he's just gonna constantly get just under 70 points every year his entire career. But no, this year he has continued off of the second half of last year, setting a career high in goals with 33 now. He has a career high in assists by a bunch with 55. I mean, yeah. Do you think he's going to get 12 points in the last, whatever it is, 14 games or something along those lines?
13 games.
13 games?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right? Like he's an absolute shoo-in for 100 points, probably 105, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Elias Pettersson, like, again, if the Vancouver Canucks were good, we are talking about like a Lady Bing shoe-in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's at 10 penalty minutes. He has 58 penalty minutes his entire career in 300 games, right? That's a penalty every like 12 games or something along those lines. That's unreal. And you look at the amount he draws, because he draws a penalty every like other game or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he's such a net positive even before you account for the 88 points in 67 games, just in penalties drawn, and then his shots unreal, and the amount of threats that he opens up. He's sort of adapted in that power play role. You know, they've tried him on both sides. He's stopped letting go the one time because those stopped working. I mean, how many 5-on-5 points does he have? Because he hasn't been like converting on the power play a lot, to the point where I think 5-on-5 wise, he's very high up there in points.
He must be 12 points in his last 8 games. And it's amazing, Parker. I just took a quick scan through his game log. Not once this entire season has he gone 3 games without a point. So about 4 times he's hit 2 games without a point. And remember, this has been a Canucks team was pretty bad until they fired Bruce Boudreau. So even in those lean games, he never went more than 2 games without registering a point. That is pretty darn impressive.
Yeah. So Elias Pettersson is 9th in the NHL in points.
Yep.
60 of those are even strength, which has him 6th in the NHL. Because only 20 are on the power play. 8 of those are shorthanded. So of all of the players in the top 10, he has the fewest power play points. Because you look at Connor McDavid, you know, I just said Elias Pettersson has 20 power play points. Connor McDavid has 60 power play points.
That is
which is so unreal, because he also leads the league in even strength points. But yeah, you know, Elias Pettersson leads the NHL in shorthanded points, and is way down there in points on the power play, to the point where he's on the second page on the NHL stats site. So, you know, if Elias Pettersson starts converting more on the power play, maybe he has 30 power play points, throw another 10 on his total, right? Now you're talking about a guy who has 98 points in 67 games, which is completely reasonable in my opinion for the future.
McDavid has 60 power play points. That is more than what 2/3 of the
one. I think it just updated.
Gosh. That's unreal.
Yeah, McDavid's on pace for I think 157 points this year.
Great.
Yeah, that's not bad, eh?
That is nuts. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we did. I know we kind of wrapped, but we spent some good time talking about the win over Anaheim. Did anything? So you watched the LA game on Saturday. Anything that concerned you aside from the fact that we had like 6 shots after 2 periods?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't the worst team when it came to that in the past little bit. I think I saw some team was getting outshot 20-0. I don't even remember at this point.
Right.
No, that Kings game. You know, the Canucks weren't fantastic, but you know they got outshot 17-40, which is bad, right? Like the Canucks were bad, but Thatcher Demko somehow wasn't a star, by the way, that game.
What?
But yeah, well, the home broadcasters always pick, right? So Alex Edler, the first star with his 1 goal. JT Miller was the 3rd star, and all he did was have 2 assists and the shootout winner instead of Thatcher Demko, who stopped.
Jordan Spence, who had no points but was a +2.
+2, that's pretty good.
And the second lowest point time of all 6 Kings defense.
He
What?
played 15 minutes, got second star, had 2 shots on goal, two +2, no assists. And yeah,
Maybe his parents were picking.
Thatcher Demko, who stopped 38 of 40 in 65 minutes, was not a star.
Wow. Ridiculous. Anyways, PD, you talked about how he's kind of finding the right place, not having his butt stuck up against the wall. Literally, figuratively, not literally, but yeah, bringing in, and this goal was pretty sweet. And he ripped it past Corpusalo and from the dot, really aggressive, right as soon as that power play started, and that was that third period game tying goal. And then in the overtime and then the shootout, especially, you got to love Demko. Your chances with Demko in a shootout for sure. And both Canucks players scored in Kuzmenko and Miller, which is pretty sweet on a game that maybe they shouldn't have won.
Yeah, Miller's was interesting because it looks like he made his move and then realized the goalie bit so early that he was like, "Oh, I can still go backhand." Like there's no poke check or anything. It's. I also want to give a shout out here. Ben says that Petey's wrist shot showed at 94 last game, and Shorty said it must be wrong. 94 mile-an-hour wrist shot, but you look at it, 94 seems believable, right? Like it was that quick to the point where you can't even track it on this on your screen.
90. Wow, as a wrister,
that's crazy.
That is crazy. That is impressive. Okay, so the Canucks beat the Kings. So the Kings, I think they smoked Calgary tonight, so they're back on their winning.
They did 8-2. Yeah, 8 to see it, as some would say. The Flames' fall has been absurd.
I don't mind it.
No, neither do I. I mean, you look at that move they made. They're like, "Oh, we're losing Kachuk anyways. Let's grab Huberdeau," and that has just done nothing for them. I mean, yeah, they're now 4 points back of a playoff spot with only 11 games to play. They are running out of time, and all these chances they've had to get back in it. I mean, yeah, they've won 4 of their last 10. They are falling apart.
They're lucky Winnipeg has faltered, and Seattle. Not Seattle, maybe not, but
Seattle's doing okay. But Winnipeg is the target at this point.
It looks like Seattle's faltered though, Parker, because Edmonton and LA have been so good. Like now it's a 3-horse race for the top of that division. Yeah.
I mean, the good teams across the NHL have been doing well, right?
Yes, that's a good point.
You look at all the last 10s, right? The top 3 in the Pacific have all won 8 of their last 10. Top 3 in Central have all won 7 of their last 10. Even you go to the Eastern Conference, it's a pretty similar story. 6 or 7 of the last 10 for each of the top of the division. The good teams are heating up because these games mean a lot. And one of the old cliches of hockey is, getting hot at the right time, right? Yeah. Can you get hot with a few games to go in the regular season and carry that into the playoffs? And these teams that need to do so, Vegas, LA, Edmonton, Dallas, Colorado, even Minnesota, are doing that. The Flames are not. The Flames are allowing 8 goals to the LA Kings, which is a pretty rough showing.
I'm giggling because of all 32 teams in the NHL, only 4 teams have, I know you're looking at the same thing, only 4 teams have won 8 of their last 10 games. They're all in the Pacific Division. They're the 3 teams we just mentioned, LA, Edmonton, Vegas, and the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I remember like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the Canucks and saying, oh, they have 3 games against Anaheim left. Those will be huge for the tank. The Canucks now have an 11-point gap on Anaheim.
Wow.
Because of how good they have been in the past 2 weeks. It's completely taken them out of tank contention. Yeah. And has them now tied with the St. Louis Blues, which is not ideal, but it's working as designed because the Canucks are not as bad as Anaheim. Clearly, as we saw previously, they're not as bad as San Jose. They're not as bad as Columbus.
Or Chicago.
The Canucks have a chance to fall down there, but it's so unlikely at this point, and it's probably not deserved.
Yeah, and you and I together for the past month have said they're going to finish somewhere between 8th and 10th from the bottom because they're not as bad as those teams you mentioned. They're not as bad as Montreal. But what's crazy is Detroit and Buffalo have only won 2 out of their last 10. So conceivably, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Canucks could jump all the way to 22nd overall, which is 11th from the bottom. So now you're not even bottom 10, let alone bottom 5. I'm sure that'll make everyone thrilled when the Canucks actually don't have a chance to win the lottery.
Yeah, the Canucks could genuinely finish like 12th worst, win the lottery, and pick second or third or whatever it would be.
Yes.
It's crazy. I mean, you look at the mock draft on Tankathon, right? And you start to see the names down there, and you're like, I've heard the draft is deep, but these are names that I have not heard floated around, right? I've heard a couple of them. I heard of Axel Sandin Pellikka because his name stood out so much in the World Championship because it's such a long name. But, once you get out of that top 3, top 4, every single win hurts you in that case. And, the Canucks have shown that they're just not bad enough.
Yes. And I know as we talk about this, there's a lot of talk about, I know Japan 4 has been a very, very staunch supporter of the tank, but he used McDavid as an example. But we must remind you that Edmonton actually won the draft lottery that year. Buffalo were the tank commanders, and they were actually had the best chance. So we obviously understand the logic behind tanking, but it's not as simple as to say, the Canucks will only have a 1 in whatever chance. Even if you're even if you're number 1, you might not win the lottery as well, and that's the whole point of why it's called a lottery. Yeah.
But Buffalo then fell to number 2 where they got Jack Eichel.
Yeah, exactly. Good constellation.
Right. like, oh no, you fell and got the second best player. It's, and sure, maybe Jack Eichel wasn't the number 2, like in a redraft probably wasn't number 2, right? Maybe it's Mitch Marner at this point. Or maybe it's, Brock Besser, probably not. But it's you want to put yourself in the best chance to get those players, and maybe the Canucks get lucky. Right? Canucks have, a 6% chance of getting first overall right now?
Yeah.
Maybe it happens. Thing is, would you rather have a 6% chance or a 9.5% chance or 11.5% chance, right?
Yep.
Or you can fall to 3rd instead of fall to 9th. It would probably be a better spot for them.
Well, it wasn't funny. Do you remember when I think it was the press conference that basically led Rutherford to say, I need to change. I need to not talk so much because blah, blah, blah. And then someone asked him and he goes, I thought we were tanking. Didn't he say that straight out?
He did. He definitely did. I mean, the Canucks didn't sell enough to tank, right? Yeah. Like they sold Horvat. And they sold Curtis Lazar and Riley Stillman.
Yeah.
And Luke Shen. Minor pieces, right? Especially when you have Christian Wolainen and coming up to replace Luke Shen, and you have Brisebois come up to replace Riley Stillman. You're not having a huge downgrade, right?
No, not at all.
And then you also have the weakest strength of schedule here on out, and you bring in a new coach, so you might get a bit of a bump there. You're asking for wins at that point. But I mean, what else are they supposed to do, right? I mean, you're not going to trade away JT Miller, although they might have, and they maybe could have. But yeah, we'll see where that goes at the draft, but probably nowhere.
Yep. All good. So we don't have to spend much time talking about the Arizona game, even though that was the only loss in the past week. And that was a game where it was the special teams that really brought the Canucks down. Arizona goes 2 for 3, and we go a big fat over 5 on the power play, maybe because Pettersson was stuck to the boards and not moving out yet.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I did watch this game, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's probably much to break down.
No, pretty boring. I do remember Arizona dominated the second period, even though in the second period they only scored 1 goal. Oh, you know what it was? It was ex-Canucks Travis Boyd, who was the Canuck killer. He scored 2 goals that night.
Right. I do remember I was playing hockey that night, and I got off the ice, and I saw that Travis Boyd had scored.
Yes.
And I said, that makes sense. Because it just happens every time.
It does. Okay. So I think we do what we should do is we broke down the games. Obviously, we spent the most time on the most recent game. And since last show, which was on Tuesday night, the Canucks did indeed go 2-1. As Parker said, they're 8-2 in their last 10. I believe they're 13-8-2 under Rick Tocchet, which is 5 games over Hockey 500, which is actually extrapolate over an 82-point season playoff pace. So say what you want about strength of schedule, about the Stars heating up at the right time. But right now, they're certainly, and I've said this before to Parker, even as this number of under talk it grows now. Originally, it was very equivalent to the Boudreaux bump from last year. One was 12-8, one was 11-9 or whatever it was, or 11-7 and 12-6 or whatever. But now I think the way the Canucks are playing now is more sustainable and with more structure. I think they were really riding Demko last season, whereas now Demko's playing well, of course, but other players are playing very well as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument because you have, okay, they're 13-8 and whatever. Against teams that average like 87 points or whatever it is, right?
Right.
However, you look at the team analytically, and they genuinely have been better. Again, against worse opponents. But the Canucks are genuinely playing better than they were earlier in the year.
Right.
However, they did this exact same thing last year, right? They did this thing where they weren't good enough. They brought in a new coach. They almost pulled it off and then fell apart a bit later on. And now they do the same thing this year. They go 0-5-2 to start. They sort of, put themselves behind the 8 ball way too early. And then they have an easy schedule late in the year, but it's too late to even capitalize on it. So if the Canucks are genuinely the team that they have been under Rick Tocchet, they're a fringe playoff team.
Yeah.
Genuine. Like they are probably between 6th and 9th in the conference. Basically exactly what we predicted them to be this year.
Yeah.
However, we're another year later in Pettersson's career, Hughes' career, Demko's career, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't feel like, it feels like we're just being lured into the same trap.
Yeah.
Right?
A few people,
it's like, hey,
Yep.
remember, literally the last 2 years, we have done these predictions on point totals, on where they'd finish. And both years, what did we say to the question of, is this a playoff team?
Yeah.
We both said it, they were. Because both years, we were tricked into thinking they were. Here's the thing. I can genuinely look at the team that they have here and say, if they make a couple moves defensively, and with Thatcher Demko being Thatcher Demko, this is a team that can make the playoffs next year. Absolutely they can. And they can finish with 100 points. And then what? Right? Is it a one-off? Do they go all in, being, 6th in the conference at the trade deadline? That doesn't feel very conducive to a formula that is, going to win a Stanley Cup one day, to the point where it's tough for me to look at and be like, oh yeah, they're going to take a step forward, because I feel like I keep getting lured into the same trap where it's hard to be optimistic, because I just feel like I'm living in a simulation where everything is the same year in, year out.
Yeah.
So we'll see next year, but I think they need some big steps forward.
Yeah. I am going to completely change my strategy for next year's prediction show. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I've learned.
I'm going to assume you're going lower.
I cannot divulge my strategy right now, Parker. I'm going to keep that close to those cards close to my chest, but you are a pretty intuitive guy. I'll just say that.
I feel like the move is to set your expectations as low as possible, which sucks, right? That's not fun. Like what is fun is coming into the season, spending the entire offseason, looking at every move and be like, okay, how does this impact their ability to make it, right? And coming into this year, we looked at the odds in the Athletic, and the Canucks were at 49%, right? And you look at that and you're like, that's not great, but it's going to be interesting.
Yes.
And then they go 5-2, and it's not that interesting anymore.
Yeah.
So I think all we can hope for is for it to be interesting, right? We've always had the meaningful games in March, right? That's been like a conversation for how long now? Like 6-7 years. But it would be nice. It would be nice to have meaningful games in March that aren't just, is Elias Pettersson going to hit 100 points? Is Quinn Hughes going to get 70 assists, right? Those aren't the fun, is Andre Kuzmenko going to score 40 goals and only have, 150 shots somehow? Like that's fun, but it's not as fun as a team that is, pushing for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And genuinely, having an exciting season.
Sure. Everything you said makes sense. Let's talk about a couple small things before we spend the last few minutes answering questions. There's been a Philip Hronek sighting, not a signing. They've already traded for him. They don't have to sign him. But yes, apparently. By the way, is it 8 Rinks? Is a Scotia Bar? What's it called now, Parker?
Used to be called 8 Rinks. Scotiabank bought the rights, so it is now called Scotia Barn.
And that's in Burnaby,
right off Kensington. Yes.
So Hronek did not make this quick road trip down to Arizona and California. Stayed back, but there's been Donnie and Dolly have had some fun with it actually. It's actually a friend of mine that I went to UBC with. He was the one who posted some footage of Hronek skating around. So I don't know if that means he's going to join the big club for practice tomorrow. I don't know if he still means he's a week away, but I'm anxious, admittedly, to see what kind of game shape and honestly, I know it can change for next season, Parker, but I just want to see who they're going to play him with. Are they going to stack a first pairing of him and Hughes? Or are they going to keep Hughes with Bear and then put him with someone like I guess Wolanin or any of our lefties with OEL gone, and then knowing that could change as well for next season if OEL's back with this team and healthy. So I guess who cares about this season? Where do you see Hronek playing next season? Is it on Hughes' right? Is it on OEL's right? Or on a third pairing guy like a whatever Dermott, Wolanin, whoever is here, his right?
I think you owe it to Quinn Hughes to give it a try this year, at the very least, right?
Yeah.
You've got however many games left. Like, you might as well play them together. Put Quinn Hughes with a genuinely offensive skilled defenseman. See what happens, right? Does Quinn Hughes start putting up 1.5 points a game? Because if he does, then okay, well, you have to run this, right? You can play them 24 minutes a night every game next year if they are genuinely that good together. So I think you have to try it this year. And go from there. I think that, you look at most teams around the league, they play their best 2 defensemen together, right? I feel like there's a reason for that. There's probably a reason that, most teams will put their 2 best defensemen on the ice together unless they have remarkable chemistry. Well, Quinn Hughes' guy and Luke Shen is now gone, right? Yep. You now have this chance to give it a try with Philip Hronek.
Yep.
Your defense isn't deep enough really to, I don't know which route you can even take, right? Is the defense not deep enough to put them together, or is the defense not deep enough to have them apart, right? It's interesting to, give them a try together and see, can the other guys tread water for 35 minutes? Or do you need to split them up and make it so, you have 2 guys who can cover each of them for 22 minutes a night, and then, you only have to tread water for 15 minutes, with whatever your third pairing is. So I think now is your time, right? Rick Tocchet's called it an extended training camp. Now is your time to mix it up, try them separately, try them together, see what provides the most value on the back end.
You make a good point. I kind of skipped over the rest of this season saying it's irrelevant, but you're right. You can, with nothing at stake really, except for getting ready for next season. Now is the time to experiment. And you're right. You can try. Once Hronek comes back, do half and half. Play 5 games with him and Hughes, play 5 games without him, and see, at least give you an inkling of what are the possibilities for next season. The other guy, I got excited because I thought he was going to play over the road trip because they brought him on the road, but obviously they brought him on the road so he can start practicing with the team, is college standout Aiden McDonough. So maybe it's just a matter of time before maybe he gets in one of these 2 home games, Parker. He's practiced with the team 2 or 3 times now. Do you see that happening either on Tuesday or Thursday?
Yeah, and I think you just got to get him in as soon as he's ready, right? Again, these games mean nothing, right?
Yeah.
Losing's better at this point. So start experimenting, if you're going to treat it as an extended training camp, for one, don't play Quinn Hughes 25 minutes a night because you don't need to. Sure, it's nice to get him, as many points as possible, but do you really want to run this guy into the ground when you need him for next year and you need to get the most out of him, and losing is not a bad thing. Rick Tocchet's trying to prove himself, right? Which you have to understand, right? And these games have all been close for the most part. You look at the game against Coyotes, look against the Kings, 1-goal games. But now's the time to try some stuff, right? See what Aiden McDonough looks like. Because if you can glean something from these games to bring into the beginning of next season, maybe it wins you an extra game earlier in the year, right? Maybe it gets you a goal that you wouldn't have had in the second game of the season. Doesn't sound like much, but maybe that's 2 points you weren't going to get, and it takes you from being a 94-point team to a 96-point team at the end of the year, right? And if you're really of the mind that, we're just going to push to make the playoffs next year, then this year you should be spending every single moment trying to figure out how to maximize the beginning of next season and really treating this as an extended training camp. And not trying to squeeze out every point you can the rest of this year, even if you have to play, Elias Pettersson 22 minutes and Quinn Hughes 28. Because you're just running these guys down for no real gain.
And on top of everything you just said, Parker, I would be fine. Not knowing all the waiver implications, I would be fine to see Arshdeep Bains, Linus Karlsson, Danila Klimovic, give these guys a couple games over the final 13 and just give them a taste, give them something to motivate them. Not that they need motivation, but you know what I mean, is get them going and get fans a little bit excited, just like how Quinn Hughes had his 5-game audition, not even his audition. When he started, Brock Besser played a few, Aidan McDonough do. So do that for more guys too. I'd be all for that, actually.
I will say that the Canucks they don't have recalls.
Never mind
They use them all at the deadline for papering guys down for the AHL. So they can only recall in the case of emergency, but I think they already have McDonough up on the roster technically, so I think that they wouldn't even get an emergency call up.
Right, because McDonough's contract is either NHL or bust. He can't be sent to Abbotsford. Yes.
Right. So at this point, Arshdeep Bains is just going to keep playing AHL games, which is fine. But you look at the ice time from last night, right? There's 2 standouts. There's Quinn Hughes or there's Elias Pettersson at 22 minutes, the only forward above 18 and a half by a full 3.5 minutes, right?
Yes.
And then there's Quinn Hughes. Tyler Myers had the second most ice time of all defensemen at 20 minutes, 26 seconds. Quinn Hughes played 7 minutes more than that. And 4 of those were power play. And he's the only guy that really plays in the power play. Wolainen played about a minute as well. But that's still 3 minutes more of even strength than Tyler Myers. It adds up, right? Quinn Hughes played 27 out of 60 minutes in a completely meaningless game against a bad opponent.
Do you think maybe he wants to do that, though? Do you think maybe he's gone
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. I guarantee that he's like, put me out there. He seems very quiet in everything we see, but everything we've heard from Boudreau and from Talkett thus far is that he's extremely vocal and he's really confident in what he wants, and he wants to play. So I'm sure he's going up and saying, put me out there. We want to win these games, but at some point, you got to put the future, into balance there and say, do we want to be putting these extra 3-4 minutes a night on your body? And maybe it doesn't, you don't feel it now, but maybe, when you are 32, maybe you're thinking, well, maybe if I played, 300 less minutes early in my career, maybe I'm a little less banged up now. Right. So you got to think, you don't need Quinn Hughes playing 27 minutes a night, right? Put a cap on these guys, put them at 20, 22, maybe. Or you can still say, if Quinn Hughes played 22 minutes last night, you still be like, he played a lot of ice time and they were trying to win, right? He doesn't have to play 27 minutes to get that point across.
That's a really good point. I think of him as a young stud now, obviously not chasing records, but having a really great season, being recognized, all these things. But I keep forgetting that 5 minutes here, extra 4 minutes here, that's going to add up. Maybe not this season, not next season, but at the tail end of either his contract or down the road, you can't help but think some of these minutes will add up. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And let's bench them. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, maybe they don't. Maybe they genuinely don't. It's different for every person, but you look at some of these, especially on the defensive side, right? Like prime example, someone like Erik Karlsson, right? Erik Karlsson is basically the Quinn Hughes from 9 years prior, right? Put up 50 to 60 assists a season, was unreal, and then completely fell off a cliff, right? You look at his last year with Ottawa, he was a minus 25, still getting a bunch of points, but just wasn't the same player. He couldn't keep up anymore, right? And what is it always? It's always the knees or the hips, right? Especially the knees on defensemen. They don't hold up that well typically. and you want to maximize, you're looking at Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes isn't going to be the key to the Canucks' success when he's 24, 25, but maybe when he's 26, 27, and this team is developing, a pretty good roster around him, you want that fall off to be as late as possible. You want to maximize your window to compete, and you want Quinn Hughes to be as fresh and his body to be as able as possible to hold up when he is, 28, 29, 30, 31, yep. 32, because that's when ideally this team is having a long push at being a real contender.
Yes. Okay. Well, we've spent a lot of time on Quinn Hughes, but rightfully so. He is, we are so lucky, blessed to have him on this team. And like you said, top 5 defenseman, top 6 defenseman in the league. Because the team was so bad this year, he's not going to get much in terms of Norris consideration, but not before, I think he will, before his season, his career is done for sure.
Absolutely. For sure. And again, it's not him being the problem. It's the team. Because yes. If this team is a contender, if this team has 95 points today, yep. right, with a bunch of games left, Quinn Hughes is right around the top of those. He's behind Erik Karlsson because he's put up 1 million points, but he's right up there, right?
Yep. I'm with you. All right, 10 minutes left. Should we go to the people?
Absolutely. Let's go to the people. There's a lot of OEL buyout talk going on, which I've seen, which we've talked about. For me, here's sort of the rule of thumb for buyouts. You want to do the buyout right before the year you're competitive, right? Because it costs you, you pay 2/3 of the money over 2 times the years. Yeah, is the way it works. Yep. So you effectively pay 1/3 of the money for double the years each year. So if you bottom out now, you have 8 years of cap hit. But if you wait a year, then it's only 6 years. And if you wait 2 years, it's 4 years or whatever it ends up being. So, you want to, are the Canucks a Stanley Cup contender next year? Do they need that cap? Especially because the cap hits usually maximize the year you do the buyout. The Canucks aren't winning the Stanley Cup next year. Is next year the year you want the max relief? Probably not, right? Take the hit next year, bench him, genuinely, and just take the hit. Right.
Jaskarin, because he's been asking it all night, and he really wants to know. So I'm going to put it up for you because he asked me on my show, and he made it a point. He said, Parker's got to answer this tonight. There you go. Does Hughes ever hit 100 points?
He gets real close. Ever? That's really tough. What defensemen have hit 100 points? Really, ever, right? It's only happened 14 times in NHL history.
What did you just type in Google? That was fast.
I typed in 100-point defenseman NHL.
Well, you're like our own version of ChatGPT. You're very good.
So there's 14 that have ever done it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them were Bobby Orr. Right? Roman Josi got close. He got 96. But the only one in modern era is Roman Josi getting that close. Erik Karlsson's got 87. He might get there this year. Cale Makar had 86 last year. That's pretty good. So probably not. Yeah. However, I bet he hits 90.
Yep.
Right? He's a point a game right now. I'm sure he gets slightly above it a couple of years. Yeah, he's probably a 90-point defenseman in his absolute peak, but he'll probably hover in the 70 to 80 range for the next few years. And that's totally fine.
I think that is totally fair too. Yeah, I think 90 points is, and that's remarkable. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
I saw lots of questions about captaincy. Do you assign a captain for next season, or do you roll 4As? What would you do?
I truly think, as much as we talked about Hughes being a good leader, and I get the hint, even though he didn't give it as massive bringing endorsement when he was talking to Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick. I still think it's Pettersson. I really do. I think he's got the disposition to handle it. He's getting better with the media. He's getting much more comfortable. English has always been fine. He's just more comfortable expressing himself. I still think, and if it was up to me, I would challenge and I would motivate, and I hope that Pettersson would say yes.
So opening night next year, you would assign Pettersson the captaincy and you wouldn't go 4As?
I would. That's what I would do. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
He's that good. I mean, and he like. Do you think it's gonna set him back? I don't. Like,
Right.
I think he already is spiritually the leader of the team,
Mhm.
just by example. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would be putting the C on Pettersson's jersey tomorrow. Genuinely.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, and I think he's ready for it for sure. What else we got? Let's see.
Let's see here. Some talk about the Horvat trade. We talked about that a bit last week.
Yeah.
Horvat's been fine for them. For that, he hasn't been putting up the points, but he's been a really important piece, and they've won a bunch of games. So
Mm-hmm.
he's
Mm-hmm.
done his job. Genuinely, I mean, they've won 6 of the last 10. They're comfortably, not comfortably, but they're in a playoff spot with a few points of buffer.
Yeah, but since you mentioned Horvat, I like this one. Thoughts on Horvat? He's been struggling, and do you think Miller's contract will age better since he's been in Vancouver? He's always been the better point producer than Horvat. There's a lot here, Parker, because we mentioned that we both think that Miller he'll probably be good for the first half of his contract, 4 years, hopefully, and then the 3 tail off. But let's remember that Horvat signed an $8.5 million contract, and we can't just worry about points. The Islanders play a different style than the Canucks. The Islanders are a playoff team. The Canucks aren't. So you might give up a few points, especially if you have a guaranteed contract for a playoff berth. So it's not as simple as saying Miller has outproduced Horvat since the trade. It's way more. There's way more than that. But the question remains: how's Horvat's contract going to age in your eyes?
Poorly, and I thought it was going to age poorly from day one.
Yeah.
Right? That's why trading Horvat was the right move, and that's why I was always behind that. One mistake does not make another mistake good. The Horvat signing, do I think who's a better player, Bo Horvat or JT Miller? Probably JT Miller in the long run, right? He's proven to be better. He's proven to put up more points. He struggled at center, but either way, I think the JT Miller contract isn't ideal for the way the Canucks are structured right now. However, would I prefer it over the Bo Horvat deal? Absolutely. I
Right.
think you're going to see Bo Horvat be a 55, 60 point player for the next maybe 5 years, and then maybe even regress off of that. And at $8.5 million a year, that's a big hit for the Islanders.
Yeah.
And I think, they kind of got strong armed into it. You trade for this player and you don't have a deal in place. What, you going to just take him as a rental and then lose him for nothing? No, you're kind of, put yourself into a corner on that. But just because the Horvat deal is bad doesn't mean the Miller one's not also questionable. The way Miller's been playing the last couple weeks, if he keeps that up for the next 8 years or the next 7 years, I guess, fantastic, right? Then it's a good contract. I just don't think, I think the Canucks are competitive, 2 to 4 years from now. And I don't think that JT Miller is going to be, the 99-point player he was last year when we get to that point.
Right. I think this one from Spartan. What does a Pettersson, extension look like? So
It looks like a lot of zeros.
if I said to you 8 years, 11 million, do you
Steal.
go over and above? So you think he would be
That
worth
is
more
an
than that?
absolute steal.
8 times 12?
That would be highway robbery if it was 11. 12, Canucks are getting out way ahead.
Wow.
I think he will get McDavid's contract.
Really?
And I think the Canucks will be happy to sign it. Look, I mean, there's been inflation and everything over the past few years, and
Sure.
look. I mean, we can use one source. It's not it's not the be all end all, and there's lots of people who question it. But you look at where the Athletic has him, right? As for, pure value.
Yeah, actually, I saw this morning. They just
and
updated it. Yeah.
It's like, I didn't look at the updated number, but what was it? Was it
19.
14? Was it 19?
Yeah, so he's worth. Oh, actually, you better check because I thought I
I'll
saw
pull it up
19
here.
million.
I'll have it in a sec. 19 sounds high. 14.7
Okay, you're smart. Yeah.
is Elias Pettersson's market value right now,
Yeah.
based on his production. So if the Canucks signed him for 12 and he kept up this production, they'd be getting $2.5 million of surplus value a year.
Wow.
It's absurd, right? And I don't think he will get, he's not going to get 14.7, right? That would be absurd. But you look at, Connor McDavid's player card, and they just put his market value at league max because it's too high a number. But his surplus value, just add salary and surplus value together. And what number do you get? You get $21 million a year for Connor McDavid. So, Elias Pettersson is one of the top players in the league, right? Yeah. I mean, genuine. Again, if the Canucks were a 100-point team right now, is he getting Hart Trophy consideration? He 100% is.
Absolutely, yes.
Right? Like, he has been one of the top 5 players in hockey all season. Yeah. If he says, give me 13 or I walk, you're not going to give him 13. You're absolutely going to give him 13, right?
I'll give him 13.
Yeah. I mean, what is, David Pastrnak is making 11.25 for the next 8 years. And that's a steal. Right? Like, it's crazy to think about it that way. But, he's going to make 11.25. But, I mean, he's got 93 points this year, right? He's got 50 goals almost. Yeah, no. If the Canucks get him, if the Canucks can go 8 years at $11 million a year, they are absolutely running away with the steal on that contract.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. So let's revisit that. We could be talking about this as early as this summer when the Canucks are eligible to sign an extension. So I think that's a good place to end tonight if you're cool with that.
Well, we do have a $10 donation from Sagar's Rage. Thank you very much. Sagar says Miller and Besser will be traded. I doubt Miller gets traded. I do think Besser gets traded for the amount that I love Brock Besser, but I mean, I think they do move on for him, and I think he could use a change of scenery. We are going to be senior citizens when the Canucks win a cup by 2060. I think you're going to be past that at that point.
I'll be thrilled to be alive in 2060. Let's put it that way. Everyone knows lovingly that I have 26 years on Parker, so 25 years on Parker. So yeah, we'll see.
I will almost be a senior citizen in 2060.
Yeah. And I will still be trying to figure out how to work my tech for my streams. Yes.
Yeah. And still hoping to see the Canucks make the playoffs.
There we go. Thank you for the donation, Sager's Rage. That's awesome.
Thank you very much. Folks, if you enjoyed the show, what?
Before we go,
we
schedule for next week. Oh, well, both games and next Monday. We have an announcement, a small announcement.
Oh, so Canucks play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Tuesday. And yeah, I'm going to be busy next Monday, so we might have to do some maneuvering.
We may start late, right? That's what we're talking about.
I was thinking we might start at 10:30 next Monday. So, folks, I know it's late. I'm very impressed with you all for being here this late. Come even later next week, 10:30 start Canucks After Dark. Make sure you're subscribed. If you did miss any part of this show, be sure to rewind back to the beginning, or you can find it later on your favorite podcast platform, or you can just, watch the YouTube video later on. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, etc., etc., etc. Clay, 2 questions for you. 1, of course, any parting words, and 2, 4 games: Golden Knights, Sharks, Stars, Blackhawks. What's your record prediction for the week?
Well, we're going to continue our dominance over California. So they beat the Sharks. They better beat Chicago, even though it's on a back-to-back. They're going to lose one outright against Vegas and Dallas, and they're going to take a point from one of them. So I'm going
2-1.
1-1. And and quickly, and then I'll let you have last word. My parting words is thank you, Parker. It feels good. A lot of interest in this team still. We're getting a lot of viewers. Thanks, everyone, for your loyalty. Coming up on starting our 3rd year, basically, in a few weeks. And if you're not sick of Canucks talk, I'm going to be rolling this all back in about 15 minutes on my own channel.
We are close. We are about 1 to 3 weeks from our 3-year Canucks After Dark anniversary.
Amazing.
I was gonna go 2-1-1, but you ruined it, so I'm gonna go 1-2. I will say they beat San Jose. That Blackhawks game's a trap game. It's a Sunday afternoon. I think they pull 1 point out of that. They lose to Vegas. They take the Stars to OT. That's going to be my prediction. But yeah, like I said, if you missed any part, find it on your favorite podcast platform or watch this video later. Folks, we really appreciate you coming out. You can find me on Twitter or YouTube at ParkersPucks. You can find Clay on Twitter and YouTube at Canuck Clay. And like Clay said, he'll be live in about 10 minutes on his channel for more Canucks talk. Have a good night, and we will see you next time.